The yellow school bus made a loud noise as it stopped in front of Maya Williams's new house. She looked at herself one more time in the hallway mirror. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore a simple blue shirt with jeans. At 15 years old, Maya was tall for her age and had strong shoulders from years of training. But right now, she felt nervous butterflies in her stomach. "You'll be fine, sweetheart," her mother, Sarah, said, giving her a warm hug. "Just be yourself and remember what your father and I taught you." Maya nodded and picked up her new backpack. Inside were fresh notebooks, pens, and her lunch that her mom had packed with extra care. She also had a small photo of her family tucked in the front pocket for good luck. This was her first day at Millbrook High School, and she wanted everything to go well. The bus door opened with a squeaky sound. Maya took a deep breath and climbed up the 3 metal steps. The bus driver, an older man with gray hair and kind eyes, smiled at her. "Good morning, young lady. You must be the new student. I'm Mr. Rodriguez." "Good morning, sir. I'm Maya Williams," she replied politely. "Welcome to Millbrook, Maya. Find yourself a good seat." Maya looked down the long aisle of the bus. There were about 20 students already sitting down, talking, and laughing with their friends. Some were listening to music with headphones, others were looking at their phones. A few younger kids sat near the front, while the older students were scattered throughout the middle and back sections. The smell of the bus was familiar, that mix of plastic seats, diesel fuel, and teenage body spray that every school bus seemed to have. Maya had ridden buses just like this one at her old school in Texas before her family moved to this small town in North Carolina. Her father, Colonel James Williams, had been transferred to a new military base nearby. He was an important officer in the Army, and the family had moved 5 times in Maya's life. She was used to being the new kid, but this time felt different. This time, she was one of only 3 black students in the entire school of 800 kids. Maya started walking down the aisle looking for an empty seat. She saw several open spots near the front and middle of the bus. The students glanced at her with curious eyes. Some looked friendly, others seemed uninterested, and a few stared at her in a way that made her feel uncomfortable. Just as she was about to sit down in an empty seat about halfway back, a loud voice cut through all the morning chatter. "Hey, new girl." Maya stopped and turned around. The voice belonged to a tall, stocky boy with bleached blonde hair and cold blue eyes. He looked about 17 years old and was sitting with 3 other boys who were all staring at her now. Maya could tell by the way other students looked at him that he was someone important on this bus, someone who made the rules. "Yeah, you," the boy continued, his voice getting louder so everyone could hear. "I'm talking to you." The entire bus became quiet. Even the younger kids stopped their conversations and turned to watch. Maya felt her heart start to beat faster, but she kept her face calm and steady. "You need to sit in the back," the boy said, pointing toward the rear of the bus. "That's where you belong." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. She knew exactly what he meant, and it had nothing to do with her being new. She had faced this kind of treatment before, but it still hurt every time. The worst part was seeing how the other students reacted. Most of them looked away or down at their phones, pretending they didn't hear what was happening. "Did you hear me?" the boy asked again, his voice taking on a mean edge. "Back of the bus. That's your spot." One of his friends, a thin boy with red hair and freckles, started to giggle nervously. Another friend, a heavy-set boy wearing a football jersey, crossed his arms and smirked. Maya could see they were enjoying this moment, feeding off their leader's power. Maya stood still for a moment, thinking about her options. She could argue and make a scene on her very first day. She could tell the bus driver, but she wasn't sure if he had heard what was said. She could sit wherever she wanted and ignore the boy completely, or she could walk to the back and avoid trouble for now. In her mind, she heard her father's voice from all the talks they had shared over the years. "Pick your battles wisely, Maya," he always said. "Sometimes the smart fighter knows when not to fight." Maya had been learning martial arts since she was 7 years old. Her father had insisted on it after they lived on a military base where she had trouble with bullies. Over the years, she had become very good at fighting. She knew karate, judo, and boxing. She had won competitions and earned black belts. Her trainers always said she had natural talent and could go far in the sport. But her training had taught her something more important than how to throw punches. It had taught her discipline and control. Real strength, her martial arts teacher Master Chen always said, was knowing when you had power and choosing not to use it. So Maya made her decision. Without saying a word, she walked slowly to the back of the bus. Her sneakers made soft sounds on the rubber floor as she passed row after row of seats. She could feel every pair of eyes watching her, and she heard the blonde boy's satisfied laugh behind her. "That's right," he called out. "Good girl, you learn fast." His friends laughed louder now, and Maya heard one of them say, "Derek sure showed her who's boss on this bus." So his name was Derek, Maya thought to herself. She would remember that. Maya found an empty seat in the very last row and sat down by the window. She put her backpack on her lap and looked outside as the bus started moving again. The town of Millbrook looked peaceful with its tree-lined streets and small houses. She could see people walking their dogs and kids playing in front yards, but inside the bus, Maya felt the tension still hanging in the air. Some students had gone back to their conversations, but she noticed many of them kept glancing back at her. A few looked sorry about what had happened, but none of them had spoken up to help her. As the bus rumbled toward school, Maya thought about her family's move to this town. Her parents had hoped for a fresh start and a chance for Maya to finish high school in a stable place. Her mother worked as a nurse and was excited about her new job at the local hospital. Her father was looking forward to his new position at the base. They had talked about the challenges Maya might face as one of the few black students in a mostly white school. But they had also talked about the opportunities. Good teachers, small class sizes, and a chance to make real friendships. Now, sitting alone in the back of the bus while Derek and his friends continued to make jokes, Maya wondered if this move had been a mistake. But then she remembered something else her father had taught her. Every challenge is a chance to show what you're made of. Maya straightened her shoulders and made a quiet promise to herself. She would not let Derek or anyone else make her feel like she didn't belong. She would be respectful and follow the rules, but she would not be pushed around. Somewhere inside her, she felt the quiet strength that came from years of training and a lifetime of her parents' love and support. The bus pulled into the school parking lot, and Maya saw Millbrook High School for the first time. It was a large brick building with wide steps leading to the main entrance. Students were walking in groups toward the front doors, carrying backpacks and talking excitedly about their day ahead. As Maya stood up to leave the bus, Derek turned around in his seat and looked at her with a cold smile. "Welcome to Millbrook," he said in a fake, friendly voice. "I think you and me are going to understand each other just fine." Maya looked him directly in the eyes, her voice calm and steady. "We'll see," she said quietly. Then she walked off the bus and toward her new school, ready to face whatever came next. Maya had been at Millbrook High School for 2 weeks now, and every morning started the same way. She would wake up at 6:30, eat breakfast with her parents, and walk to the bus stop at the corner of Oak Street. The yellow bus would arrive at exactly 7:15, and Derek Morrison would be waiting for her. "Morning, back of the bus girl," Derek would say with his cruel smile. "You know where you belong." Maya would walk quietly to her seat in the last row while Derek's friends laughed. Tommy, the red-haired boy, would make jokes. Brad, the football player, would pound his fist on the seat. And Jake, a skinny boy with dark hair, would record everything on his phone thinking it was funny. But Maya noticed things that Derek didn't see. She saw how the younger kids looked scared when Derek talked. She saw Sarah, a quiet girl with glasses, quickly look away whenever the bullying started. She noticed Marcus, a shy sophomore, shake his head sadly but never say anything. At school, Derek's behavior got worse. He would accidentally bump into Maya in the hallways, making her drop her books. When she bent down to pick them up, he would step on her papers. In the cafeteria, he would walk by her table and knock over her water bottle. His friends thought this was the funniest thing in the world. "Oops," Derek would say with fake surprise. "So clumsy of me." Maya's teachers seemed nice enough, but they never saw what Derek did. He was smart about his bullying, always doing it when adults weren't watching. In math class, he would kick the back of Maya's chair. In English, he would Whisper mean comments just loud enough for her to hear but too quiet for Mrs. Henderson to notice. "Hey, Maya," he whispered one day during a reading assignment. "When are you going back to where you came from?" Maya gripped her pencil tighter but didn't turn around. She had learned to expect these moments and tried to stay focused on her schoolwork. But it was getting harder every day. The worst part was lunch period. Maya usually sat alone at a small table near the windows. She would eat the sandwiches her mother made and try to read a book or do homework. But Derek's table was nearby, and he made sure she could hear every cruel joke. "Look at her sitting all alone," Derek would say loudly. "I guess nobody wants to be friends with the charity case." His friends would laugh and make comments about Maya's clothes, her hair, or the way she talked. They seemed to have an endless supply of mean things to say. Maya tried to ignore them, but their words hurt. At her old school in Texas, she had many friends. She was popular and well-liked. Teachers praised her good grades and her polite behavior. Here, she felt invisible, except when Derek was making fun of her. At home, Maya's parents could see something was wrong. During dinner, she was quiet and picked at her food. She didn't talk about her day like she used to. Her mother, Sarah Williams, was worried. "How are things going at school, sweetheart?" Sarah asked one evening while they ate spaghetti. "Fine," Maya said, not looking up from her plate. "Are you making any friends?" Her father, Colonel James Williams, asked. "Not really," Maya admitted. "Everyone already has their groups." Her parents exchanged worried looks. They knew moving was hard on teenagers, but Maya seemed more upset than usual. "If anyone is giving you trouble, you need to tell us," her father said firmly. "We didn't raise you to suffer in silence." Maya wanted to tell them about Derek, but she was afraid. She didn't want her parents to think she couldn't handle things herself. She also didn't want them to worry or do something that might make things worse at school. "I can handle it, Dad," she said. "I just need more time to fit in." But Maya was struggling more than she wanted to admit. At night, she would lie in bed thinking about Derek's cruel words. She wondered if coming to this school had been a mistake. She missed her old friends and her old life. The only place Maya felt better was at the local martial arts studio. Master Chen, an elderly Korean man with wise eyes, had agreed to continue her training. 3 times a week, Maya would walk to his small gym after school. "Your kicks are getting stronger," Master Chen told her during one session. "But your mind seems troubled. In martial arts, a peaceful mind is more important than strong muscles." Maya was practicing her forms on the heavy bag, throwing punches harder than usual. She was thinking about Derek's face every time her fist hit the leather. "I'm fine, Master Chen," Maya said, breathing heavily. The old man said, stroking his gray beard. "When we fight with anger, we have already lost. True strength comes from peace, not revenge." Maya stopped punching and looked at her teacher. "What if someone keeps hurting you? What if they won't stop?" Master Chen smiled gently. "Then you must be like water. Water doesn't fight the rock. It flows around it and finds another way. Eventually, water wins because it never gives up, but it also never wastes energy on anger." Maya thought about his words, but they were hard to follow. Derek wasn't a rock she could flow around. He was everywhere. On the bus, in the halls, in her classes. There was no way to avoid him. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon. Maya was having a particularly bad day. Derek had knocked her books down twice, spilled juice on her homework during lunch, and convinced other students to avoid sitting near her in study hall. When the school day ended, Maya was exhausted and frustrated. She just wanted to get home and forget about everything. But as she walked to the bus, she heard Derek's voice behind her. "Hey, Maya," he called out. "Wait up." Maya kept walking, hoping he would leave her alone, but Derek jogged to catch up with her along with his 3 friends. "I'm talking to you," Derek said, grabbing her shoulder and spinning her around. Maya pulled away from his grip. "Don't touch me," she said firmly. "Oh, the princess has some fight in her." Derek laughed. "Too bad you're all talk and no action." Students were gathering around now, sensing that something big was about to happen. Maya could see phones coming out as kids prepared to record whatever came next. "Leave me alone, Derek," Maya said, her voice staying calm even though her heart was racing. Or what? Derek stepped closer, trying to intimidate her with his size. What are you going to do about it? Maya looked at his face, red with anger and meanness. She looked at his friends, excited to see a fight. She looked at all the other students watching and waiting to see what would happen. For a moment, Maya thought about what Master Chen had taught her. She thought about her parents' advice. She thought about all the martial arts training that had made her strong and confident. But she also thought about 2 weeks of daily humiliation. She thought about eating lunch alone while Derek made jokes. She thought about walking to the back of the bus every single morning while everyone watched. Nothing, Maya said quietly, stepping back. I'm not going to do anything. Derek's smile got bigger and meaner. That's what I thought. You're all talk, just like I said. He turned to walk toward the bus, but then he stopped and looked back at Maya. See you Monday morning, he said, back of the bus as usual. As Maya walked to her seat for another humiliating ride home, she made a decision. She couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change, and soon. She just wasn't sure what that something would be. The bus pulled away from school and Maya stared out the window at the passing trees. She thought about Master Chen's words about water and rocks. Maybe it was time to stop being so much like water. Maybe it was time to show Derek that even water could be dangerous when it needed to be. Monday morning came too quickly for Maya. She had spent the weekend thinking about Derek and wondering how much longer she could take his daily bullying. Her parents had noticed her quiet mood during dinner on Sunday night, but Maya still hadn't told them the full truth about what was happening at school. As Maya walked to the bus stop, she felt a knot in her stomach. The familiar yellow bus was already coming down Oak Street, and she knew Derek would be waiting with his usual cruel greeting. The bus doors opened with their squeaky sound, and Mr. Rodriguez smiled at her like always. Good morning, Maya. How was your weekend? It was good, thank you, Maya replied politely, even though it wasn't entirely true. She started walking down the aisle, and right on schedule, Derek's voice rang out across the bus. Well, 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 look who's back, Derek said with his mean smile. Did you miss me, Maya? I sure missed having you around to entertain us. His friends Tommy, Brad, and Jake all laughed like this was the funniest joke they had ever heard. Maya noticed that some of the other students looked uncomfortable, but nobody said anything to help her. You know the drill, Derek continued, pointing toward the back of the bus. Your special seat is waiting for you. Maya started walking toward the back, but this time something felt different. As she passed Derek's seat, he stuck his foot out into the aisle, trying to trip her. Maya's martial arts training kicked in automatically. Her reflexes were sharp from years of practice, and she smoothly stepped over his foot without stumbling. Derek's face turned red with embarrassment. He had expected Maya to fall down and give everyone a good laugh. Instead, she had moved like a dancer, making him look stupid. Hey, Derek said angrily. I wasn't finished talking to you. Maya turned around to face him. For the first time in 3 weeks, she looked directly into his eyes without fear. What else do you want to say? Maya asked calmly. The whole bus became quiet. This was new. Maya had never talked back to Derek before. She had always just walked to the back and sat down without saying a word. Derek was surprised, but he quickly recovered. I want to know how you did that. Are you some kind of ninja or something? Several students giggled nervously. Maya could see that Derek was trying to make another joke at her expense, but something in her eyes made him less confident than usual. I take martial arts classes, Maya said simply. Oh, martial arts, Derek said in a mocking voice. Hear that, guys? Maya thinks she's a fighter. But Maya noticed that Derek didn't try to trip her again as she walked to her seat. She also noticed that some of the other students were looking at her with new interest. Maybe they were wondering what other surprises the quiet new girl might have. At school that day, Derek seemed more determined than ever to embarrass Maya. During lunch, he walked over to her table carrying his tray of food. Maya was reading a book and eating her sandwich when Derek accidentally bumped into her table hard enough to make her milk carton fall over. Oops, Derek said with fake concern. Look what I did, let me help you clean that up. But instead of helping, Derek knocked over Maya's book and scattered her papers across the floor. Milk was dripping everywhere and Maya's homework was getting soaked. "Derek, stop it," said a voice from nearby. Everyone turned to look. It was Sarah, the quiet girl with glasses who usually never spoke up about anything. She was sitting at the next table with two of her friends and she looked nervous but determined. "What did you say?" Derek asked, turning his attention to Sarah. "I said stop it," Sarah repeated, her voice shaking a little. "You're being mean for no reason." Derek walked over to Sarah's table, leaving Maya to clean up the mess by herself. "I don't remember asking for your opinion, Four Eyes." Maya watched as Derek started bullying Sarah the same way he bullied her. She saw the fear in Sarah's eyes and the way Sarah's friends looked down at their food, not wanting to get involved. Something inside Maya snapped. She stood up quickly, her chair making a scraping sound against the floor. "Leave her alone," Maya said firmly. Derek spun around, surprised by the steel in Maya's voice. "What did you say to me?" "I said leave her alone. Sarah was just trying to help me and you're being a bully." The entire cafeteria was watching now. Students at nearby tables had stopped eating to see what would happen. Maya could feel dozens of eyes on her, but she wasn't scared anymore. She was angry. "You don't get to tell me what to do," Derek said, walking back toward Maya. "You're nobody here. You're just the weird new girl who sits in the back of the bus." "Maybe," Maya said calmly. "But I'm not going to watch you hurt other people just because you think you can." Derek's face was getting redder by the minute. He wasn't used to anyone standing up to him, especially not Maya. For 3 weeks she had been quiet and obedient. This new version of Maya was making him look weak in front of everyone. "You think you're tough because you know some karate moves?" Derek asked loudly. "Let me tell you something. This isn't a movie. Real fights are different than whatever they taught you in your little classes." Maya didn't answer. She just stared at Derek with calm, steady eyes. Her martial arts training had taught her that the person who stayed calm usually won the fight before it even started. "You know what?" Derek said, his voice getting louder. "Maybe it's time someone taught you how things really work around here." Before anyone could react, Derek shoved Maya hard in the shoulder. She stumbled back a step but quickly regained her balance. The cafeteria gasped collectively. "Derek Morrison!" shouted Mrs. Peterson, one of the lunch supervisors. She had been helping a student at another table and just saw Derek push Maya. "What do you think you're doing?" Derek quickly put on his innocent face. "Nothing, Mrs. Peterson. Maya and I were just talking, and she lost her balance." Mrs. Peterson looked suspiciously at Derek, then at Maya. "Is that true, Maya?" Maya looked at Derek, who was giving her a warning look that said she better not tell the truth. She looked at Sarah, who was watching hopefully. She looked at all the other students who had seen exactly what happened. "Derek pushed me," Maya said clearly. "That's a lie," Derek said angrily. "I never touched her. She's just trying to get me in trouble because she doesn't like me." Mrs. Peterson looked around the cafeteria. Did anyone else see what happened? For a moment, nobody spoke. Maya could see that several students wanted to tell the truth, but they were scared of Derek and what he might do to them later. Finally, Sarah raised her hand. "I saw it," she said quietly. Derek pushed Maya. "She's lying too," Derek protested. "They're working together to make me look bad." But then Marcus, the shy sophomore, also raised his hand. "I saw it happen too," he said. Soon, several other students were nodding and confirming Maya's story. Derek looked around in shock as his power over the cafeteria began to crumble. "Derek, you need to come with me to the principal's office," Mrs. Peterson said firmly. "This is ridiculous," Derek muttered, but he followed Mrs. Peterson out of the cafeteria. As they left, the cafeteria buzzed with excited conversation. Students were talking about what had just happened and about Maya standing up to Derek. Sarah came over to Maya's table. "Thank you for defending me," she said gratefully. "That was really brave." "You were brave too," Maya replied. "You spoke up first." Marcus also walked over, along with a few other students Maya had never really talked to before. "That was amazing," Marcus said. "I've wanted to stand up to Derek for 2 years, but I was always too scared." Maya felt something she hadn't felt since starting at Millbrook High School. She felt like she belonged. For the first time, other students were treating her like a friend instead of an outsider. But Maya also knew that this was just the beginning. Derek would be back and he would be angrier than ever. The real confrontation was still coming, and Maya had a feeling it would happen sooner rather than later. As she cleaned up the spilled milk and gathered her wet papers, Maya thought about what Master Chen had taught her about being like water. Maybe she had been wrong about flowing around Derek like he was a rock. Maybe it was time to show him that water could also be a powerful force when it needed to be. Derek Morrison was furious. He had spent an hour in Principal Johnson's office getting lectured about bullying and school rules. The principal had called his parents, given him detention for a week, and warned him that any more trouble would result in suspension. When Derek finally got back to class, he was embarrassed and angry. For the rest of the week, Derek was forced to behave himself during school hours because teachers were watching him closely. But he made sure Maya knew that this wasn't over. He would glare at her in the hallways and whisper threats when adults weren't listening. "You think you're so smart," Derek hissed as he passed Maya's locker on Thursday. "But you have no idea what's coming." Maya tried to ignore him, but she could feel the tension building. She knew Derek was planning something bigger than his usual tricks. The way he looked at her reminded Maya of a snake getting ready to strike. On Friday afternoon, Maya felt relieved that the week was almost over. She had made some real friends, Sarah, Marcus, and a few other students who had started sitting with her at lunch. For the first time since arriving at Millbrook, Maya felt like she might actually belong somewhere. But as the final bell rang and students rushed toward the buses, Maya could see Derek waiting by the school entrance with his 3 friends. They were blocking the path to the bus, and Derek had a mean smile on his face. "Well, well, well," Derek said as Maya approached. "If it isn't the school's new hero." Tommy, Brad, and Jake spread out around Derek, forming a semicircle that trapped Maya between them and the brick wall of the school building. Other students were walking by, but most of them were in a hurry to catch their buses and get home for the weekend. "What do you want, Derek?" Maya asked, keeping her voice steady even though her heart was starting to beat faster. "I want to have a little chat about what happened in the cafeteria," Derek said, stepping closer. "You made me look like a fool in front of the whole school." "You made yourself look like a fool," Maya replied. "I just told the truth." Derek's face turned red with anger. "You think you're so tough with your martial arts and your attitude. But let me tell you something. Knowing how to kick a board in half doesn't make you tough in the real world." Maya could see that Derek was trying to provoke her into a fight. She thought about Master Chen's teachings about staying calm and not letting anger control her actions. But she also remembered her father's lessons about standing up for herself when necessary. "I don't want to fight you, Derek," Maya said firmly. "I just want you to leave me alone." "Too bad," Derek sneered, "because I'm not done with you yet." He reached out and grabbed Maya's backpack, trying to yank it off her shoulder. Maya held on tightly, but Derek was stronger and pulled harder. "Let go of my bag," Maya demanded. "Make me," Derek challenged. That's when Maya's training took over. Without thinking about it, she used a simple wrist control technique that Master Chen had taught her. She grabbed Derek's wrist and applied pressure to a specific point, forcing him to release her backpack immediately. Derek pulled his hand back, surprised by the sharp pain in his wrist. "What did you just do to me?" "I asked you to let go," Maya said calmly. Derek looked at his friends who were staring in shock. He had been easily defeated by a move they didn't even see coming. His reputation as the toughest guy in school was starting to crack. "You think you're clever?" Derek asked angrily. "Let's see how clever you are when I really try." Derek lunged forward, trying to grab Maya with both hands. But Maya was ready this time. Years of training had made her reflexes lightning fast. She stepped to the side smoothly, letting Derek's momentum carry him past her. He stumbled and nearly fell into the brick wall. "Derek, stop this," said a voice from behind them. Everyone turned to see Mr. Rodriguez, the bus driver, walking toward them with a concerned expression on his face. "The buses are about to leave," Mr. Rodriguez said. "Everyone needs to get on board now." Derek straightened up, trying to look innocent. "We were just talking, Mr. Rodriguez, no problem here." But the bus driver could see the tension in the air. He had been driving school buses for 15 years and knew trouble when he saw it. "Maya, you can get on the bus," Mr. Rodriguez said. "Derek, you and your friends need to find another way home today. I'll be having a word with Principal Johnson about this." Derek's face went from red to purple with rage. "That's not fair. We didn't do anything wrong." "I saw you grab her backpack," Mr. Rodriguez said firmly. "That's enough for me. Now move along before I call security." Maya walked quickly to the bus, grateful for Mr. Rodriguez's intervention, but as she climbed the steps, she could hear Derek shouting behind her. "This isn't over, Maya, you hear me? This isn't over." The bus ride home was tense. Other students kept looking at Maya and whispering among themselves. Word was spreading quickly about the confrontation outside school. Some students seemed impressed that Maya had stood up to Derek, while others looked worried about what might happen next. Sarah moved to sit next to Maya. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "I'm fine," Maya said, but she wasn't entirely sure that was true. She had managed to avoid a real fight today, but she knew Derek wouldn't give up so easily. That weekend, Maya spent extra time at Master Chen's martial arts studio. She worked on her forms and practiced self-defense techniques, but her mind kept wandering to the confrontation with Derek. "Your body is here, but your spirit is somewhere else," Master Chen observed during Saturday's training session. Maya stopped practicing and looked at her elderly teacher. "Master Chen, what do you do when someone won't leave you alone? When being peaceful doesn't work?" Master Chen stroked his gray beard thoughtfully. "Sometimes, Maya, we must show our strength to protect peace. A sword that is never drawn can keep the peace better than a sword that is always hidden." "I don't understand," Maya said. "If someone knows you are strong, they may choose not to fight you," Master Chen explained. "But if they think you are weak, they will never stop testing you. Sometimes showing your power once can prevent many fights." Maya thought about his words carefully. She had been trying to avoid conflict with Derek for weeks, but it had only made him bolder. Maybe it was time to show him that she wasn't the helpless victim he thought she was. Monday morning came too quickly. As Maya walked to the bus stop, she felt different than usual. She wasn't scared or nervous anymore. She was tired of running away and ready to face whatever Derek had planned. The yellow bus pulled up right on time, and Maya climbed aboard. But something was different today. Derek wasn't sitting in his usual seat. Instead, he was standing in the aisle near the front of the bus, blocking Maya's path completely. "Good morning, Maya," Derek said with a cold smile. "We need to finish our conversation from Friday." The entire bus fell silent. Everyone could feel that this was the moment they had been building toward for weeks. Maya looked at Derek standing there like a wall between her and the rest of the bus. "Move, Derek," Maya said calmly. "I don't think so," Derek replied. "You see, I've been thinking about you all weekend, and I've decided that it's time to teach you some respect." Maya looked around the bus. She saw fear in the younger students' faces, excitement in some of the older ones, and hope in Sarah's eyes. She thought about Master Chen's words about showing strength to keep peace. "Derek," Maya said clearly so everyone could hear, "I'm going to ask you one more time to move out of my way." Derek laughed loudly. "And what are you going to do if I don't? Tell the teacher? Call your mommy?" Maya took a deep breath and made her decision. "No," she said quietly. "I'm going to move you myself." The bus erupted in gasps and whispers. This was it. The moment everyone had been waiting for. Derek's smile got bigger and meaner. "Finally," he said, cracking his knuckles. "I was wondering when you'd grow a backbone." What happened next would be talked about at Millbrook High School for years to come. The school bus felt like a boxing ring. Derek Morrison stood in the middle of the aisle, his hands clenched into fists, his face red with anger. Maya Williams faced him calmly, her backpack still on her shoulder, her breathing steady and controlled. Every student on the bus was watching. Some had their phones out ready to record whatever happened next. The younger kids looked scared, while the older ones seemed excited to finally see a real fight. Mr. Rodriguez, the bus driver, was watching through his rearview mirror. He reached for his radio to call for help, but he also knew that by the time Security arrived. Whatever was going to happen would already be over. You think you're so tough? Derek sneered at Maya. But I've been fighting since I was 10 years old. I've beaten up kids twice your size. Maya didn't respond. She remembered Master Chen's teachings about staying calm before a fight. Her body was relaxed but ready, like a coiled spring waiting to be released. Derek took a step closer. My dad taught me how to fight. Real fighting, not that dance stuff you learned in your little classes. Derek, please move, Maya said one last time, her voice quiet but firm. Derek laughed meanly. Make me, princess. That's when Derek made his biggest mistake. He reached out to grab Maya by the shoulders, planning to push her roughly toward the back of the bus. But Maya was ready. In one smooth motion, Maya stepped to the side and grabbed Derek's wrist. She used a technique called a hip throw that Master Chen had taught her months ago. Derek's own forward momentum worked against him as Maya guided him over her hip and sent him tumbling down the aisle. Derek hit the floor of the bus with a loud thud, his legs flying up in the air. For a moment, he just lay there, stunned and confused about what had just happened. The bus exploded in shocked gasps and excited whispers. Nobody had expected Maya to move so quickly or so skillfully. Derek had looked like he was flying through the air. Did you see that? Whispered Sarah to the girl next to her. She barely even touched him, said Marcus in amazement. Derek scrambled to his feet, his face now bright red with embarrassment and rage. He had been humiliated in front of the entire bus, and his reputation as the toughest kid in school was crumbling. You got lucky, Derek snarled, charging at Maya again. This time Derek swung his fist at Maya's face, but Maya had been training for this moment for years. She ducked under his punch easily and used Derek's own momentum against him again. With a simple foot sweep, she sent Derek tumbling to the floor for the second time. Derek hit the ground even harder this time, and the bus erupted in cheers and applause. Students were amazed by what they were seeing. Maya wasn't just defending herself, she was making Derek look clumsy and foolish. Stay down, Derek, Maya said calmly. I don't want to hurt you. But Derek was too angry and embarrassed to listen, to reason. He got up again, this time more carefully, and circled around Maya like a wild animal. I'm going to destroy you, Derek growled. He lunged at Maya one more time, trying to tackle her to the ground, but Maya was ready for this too. She stepped aside at the last second and used Derek's own weight against him, guiding him into an empty seat with a technique that looked almost like dancing. Derek crashed into the seat sideways, his legs tangled, up in his arms, flailing wildly. This time he didn't get up right away. He sat there breathing heavily, looking confused and defeated. The entire bus was cheering for Maya now. Even students who had been afraid to speak up before were clapping and shouting her name. Maya! 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 They chanted. Mr. Rodriguez pulled the bus over to the side of the road and turned on the emergency lights. He stood up and walked down the aisle to where Derek was sitting. That's enough, Mr. Rodriguez said firmly. Derek, you're off. This bus permanently. I'm calling your parents and the principal right now. Derek looked around the bus and saw that everyone was staring at him with disappointment and disgust. His friends Tommy, Brad, and Jake were looking away, embarrassed to be associated with him. The younger kids weren't afraid of him anymore. They were looking at him like he was just a pathetic bully who had finally been stopped. This isn't fair, Derek mumbled, but there was no fight left in him. You brought this on yourself, Mr. Rodriguez said. Maya never wanted to fight. She just wanted to be left alone. As they waited for Derek's parents to come pick him up, Maya sat down in the front of the bus. She wasn't breathing hard or sweating. She looked completely calm, like nothing unusual had happened. Sarah moved to sit next to Maya. That was incredible, she said. How did you learn to do that? My martial arts teacher says the best fight is the one you avoid, Maya replied. But if you can't avoid it, you should end it quickly and safely. Marcus and several other students gathered around Maya's seat. They were looking at her with new respect and admiration. Derek's been bullying kids in this school for 3 years, Marcus said. Nobody ever stood up to him before. I didn't want to fight him, Maya explained, but he wouldn't stop, and he was hurting other people too. When Derek's parents arrived, they looked embarrassed and angry. Derek's father, A big man in an expensive suit apologized to Mr. Rodriguez and Maya before taking his son away. As the bus continued toward school, Maya thought about everything that had happened. She hadn't wanted any of this, but she was glad. It was finally over. Derek would probably be suspended or even expelled, and other students wouldn't have to be afraid of him anymore. At school that day, Maya was treated like a hero. Students who had never talked to her before came up to say, "Thank you." Teachers who had heard about the incident praised her for defending herself and others. Principal Johnson called Maya to his office, but not to get in trouble. He wanted to thank her for her restraint and self-control during the fight. "Derek could have been seriously hurt," Principal Johnson said, "but you used just enough force to stop him without causing real damage. That shows remarkable maturity and training." Maya's parents were called to school too, but they came with pride instead of worry. When they heard the full story from multiple witnesses, they were amazed by their daughter's courage and self-control. "You handled that exactly the way we taught you," Maya's father said, giving her a big hug. "You tried to avoid the fight, you protected yourself when necessary, and you didn't use more force than you needed to." Her mother was equally proud. "You stood up not just for yourself, but for other students who couldn't defend themselves. That takes real character." That afternoon at Master Chen's martial arts studio, Maya told her teacher about what had happened on the bus. "You have learned well," Master Chen said with a wise smile. "You showed strength when it was needed, but you also showed mercy. That is the true way of martial arts." "Will Derek try to bother me again?" Maya asked. Master Chen shook his head. "Bullies like Derek only pick on people they think are weak. Now everyone knows you are strong. He will find easier targets, or hopefully he will learn to change his ways." From that day forward, Maya's life at Millbrook High School was completely different. She became one of the most respected students in the school. She started a martial arts club that taught other students how to defend themselves. She also began an anti-bullying program that helped younger kids report problems before they got too serious. Derek never returned to Millbrook High School. His parents decided to send him to a military boarding school where he could learn discipline and respect. Maya heard that he was doing better there and actually apologized to some of his former victims through letters. Maya made many good friends at Millbrook and became a leader in her class. She proved that sometimes the quiet new student could be the strongest person in the room. But more importantly, she showed everyone that true strength comes from protecting others, not from hurting them. Years later, when Maya graduated as valedictorian of her class, she would remember that morning on the school bus as the day she learned that standing up for what's right is always worth the risk.